Thanks for tuning in to the OFN Today with Mark Lawrence of Covers.com for this Friday, the 22nd of November, 2019, on the Our Football Radio Network at ourlads.com. The OFN Today is brought to you in part by Covers.com. Make sure to visit Covers Experts at experts.covers.com, and you could take 50% off any purchase by using the promo code PRIME50. That's Prime50. Also, please remember, don't forget to check out our College Football Blitz show with Dave Koken of Covers.com every Friday, and also our College Football show on Thursdays with Mitch Light of Athlon Sports. Bring in Mark Lawrence. And Mark, we are less than a week away from Thanksgiving, so you know the season is getting real.
Yeah, I'm getting ready for that whipped cream and that pumpkin pie, I can tell you that, Greg. Those are my two favorites, and I only do them once a year or so. You'll have to excuse me if I look like a pig on Thanksgiving
That's
because
all
I'll
right.
be just that, okay?
You're allowed.
Okay.
And, it would be nice, though, if we could actually have – I don't know. Is it really that difficult for them to come up with good Thanksgiving Day games?
It shouldn't be. I mean, you have the two staples, Detroit and Dallas at home. They usually try to pair as many division games as they can. They try and bring one or two teams and maybe that haven't been there for a while. But I think all in all, this year's slate of games might be okay, given the fact that Detroit is always, like I say, that staple. They're not good this year. Dallas is good this year. So it will be worth watching on Thanksgiving Day.
Well, thank goodness Atlanta started playing better. So
yes,
that
for sure.
and they beat New Orleans, which gives us something there. And maybe Matthew Stafford makes a recovery in time, which would be a lot better. We'll get into Trubisky a little bit later. But first I wanted to talk about Thanksgiving because we won't be doing a show until after Thanksgiving.
Right.
And if you had to pick one stat for a team that is either good or bad on Thanksgiving, and of course you got Dallas, Detroit, those are the staples, as you said, every year on Thanksgiving, which would it be?
Well, between those two teams, Greg, you mentioned there, everything goes in cycles, as you know. Detroit had been absolutely horrible on Thanksgiving Day. They've reversed that. They've won 4 of the last 6 years on Thanksgiving Day, and Dallas have been real good, but now they're going backwards on Thanksgiving Day. I think like 1-7 to the spread their last 8 games. So it all goes to the equation of what goes up must come down. And that's what's happening right now in the National Football League on Thanksgiving Day. So don't ever bank on a team trend alone when it comes to handicapping Thanksgiving Day games. Handicap the games for what they are.
Yeah, and keep in mind that when Detroit won 4 of the last 6 on Thanksgiving, Jeff Driscoll was not their quarterback.
Yes, that's true. Yes, it is.
Yeah, we have to keep that in mind. All right, so let's get into these games, and we're going to start with the game that there are 2 games on the list this week that we both like a lot. So we're going to start with one of them, and this is not a surprise. When I knew I liked them, I knew that you would like them, and that is Seattle. And since we both like Seattle, I think we're both hoping that the line stays the same because they're a 1-point dog right now. And Seattle is a great dog. Even this year, they have won all 3 of their games this year outright as a dog. They have covered 10 straight as a dog, 6 of those wins. They're coming off the win against San Francisco when they were undefeated as a dog. And then you got the Eagles, who are 0-7 ATS, their last 7 at home, versus opponents off an upset win, including 0-1 this year. So, and let's just, even if we throw out all of those numbers, who's the better team? And I just think it's Seattle.
Well, I think the bottom line to all that, Greg, might be the fact that when you're giving Russell Wilson points, his team is the better team. He's been outstanding in his career taking points. 18-4-1 to the spread when he's off of a win doing just that.
Wow.
Then you've got Philadelphia, who really struggles at home off a home loss. If that home loss was a non-division game, they're just 1-9-1 straight up and 1-10 to the spread. But what gets me to Seattle the most in this football game is this. They're going west to east as far as the time zones go. Mm-hmm. Most of the West Coast teams tend to struggle doing that, but Seattle is the exception. They are 16-6-1 to the spread going west to east since 2010, including 9-1 to the number when the team they're playing is off a loss. So
Okay.
you put Russell Wilson together, the job that Pete Carroll does preparing his team going West Coast to East Coast. I'm going to be on Seattle in this football game.
Yeah, to keep in mind, there are a lot of injuries on both sides of the ball, especially on the offensive line. And with Lane Johnson going down last week, that's a big blow because it doesn't look like he's going to play this week as well. Clowney hasn't been practicing for Seattle, so keep an eye on that. He's having a fantastic season since the deal. Lockett looks like he'll be back for Seattle, and it looks like a rookie might start, I believe, at right tackle for the Eagles, the kid Dillard, with Lane Johnson out.
I'll throw this in there, Greg, real quick before we go on to our next game here. I saw this stat come across my desk. Since Carson Wentz has been a quarterback with the Eagles, in games that Lane Johnson has started, Carson Wentz's quarterback rating is 95.5.
Okay.
In games that Lane Johnson has not been in that lineup, his quarterback rating is 75.4.
Mm.
So he makes a huge difference to this offense, not only to Carson Wentz, but to the Eagles as well.
Well, that's actually a point that I want to make when we talk a little bit later on with the Jet Oakland game, but we'll do that a little bit later on. Let's talk about a game we disagree with, and I was kind of surprised that we're disagreeing on this one, but maybe not so because you've actually been taking the Bengals the last few weeks, and the Steelers are not an underdog, which is when you like to take the Steelers, but they're a favorite here at about 6.5, 7 points, and I actually think that this is a game I might stay away from. And the deciding factor has been the injury reports that I've kind of looked at. Like I always stay away from injury reports until the end of the week. I don't care what happens at the beginning of the week. But now with Juju Smith looking like he's not going to play, Pouncey's already out with the suspension. That just throws on top of the fact that you got the distraction of the whole situation that's still there with Mason Rudolph, who's going to be playing quarterback, and that to me is definitely something that is making me potentially balk at this one. Bengals are 0-4 straight up ATS at home. Why do you like the Bengals to cover this one?
I like it for two reasons, Greg. Number one, you've got the fallout for Pittsburgh from that fracas at Cleveland. And losing a couple of players to suspension, I don't believe is going to help this football team. I think they're going to be a little bit disoriented in that sense. I also like the Bengals from the standpoint that they are a winless team. The second half of the season in the NFL, winless division dogs are a pretty good place. They're 21-11 against the spread. You oftentimes play down to the level of those teams. That's a lot of the reason why those underdogs take home the money. This is a division rivalry. I'll be on Cincinnati in this contest.
Yeah, and the other thing, working against Cincinnati, they're 1-8 ATS last 9 as division home dogs of 4 or more points, including the Baltimore blowout. But again, as you mentioned, there are a lot of warning signs going on with the Steelers after the Cleveland debacle, and no Juju, and really no running game either. They're not getting a running game going. Everybody's banged up back there in the backfield. You got a rookie, basically a quarterback. So yeah, it's this could be the end of the season for Pittsburgh if they lose it, and I hope they lose because the Jets play the Bengals next week.
Well, you mentioned Marquise Pouncey being out, and for that, I will say this. This is my own little commentary because I'm from Cleveland, okay? And in that brawl, you saw Marquise Pouncey kicking Myles Garrett while he was on the ground. To no surprise of nobody, because remember way back when in the day, Pouncey was a roommate of Aaron Hernandez at Florida.
All right.
They were roomies, they were buddies. And in
Okay.
fact, it was rumored that he was in the car with Hernandez the day he whacked that individual.
Wow.
Once a gangster, always a gangster.
I like it.
Okay?
Okay.
Yes.
Very interesting.
So we'll watch him on the sidelines and see what happens.
Maybe they'll pick up Tyreek Hill
There we
as a
go.
hitchhiker. Okay. Let's get to a game that we also disagree on, and this one is one that I'm willing to have my mind changed, but because it's not one that I'm gonna go kicking and screaming to the booth with, but I am taking. I do like Denver getting the points against Buffalo. They've covered 3 straight and 5 out of 6. They've won 3 out of the last 6. So even though who is this Brandon Allen guy? Even though, of course, I've seen him play at Arkansas. Fact is, nobody ever expected him to be a quarterback in the NFL. But look, they had Minnesota in a good situation last week before falling. They're getting better every week, especially with Fangio's defense, even without Chubb. And Buffalo just seems to be one of these teams that just has a problem blowing teams out at home or covering at home. They're just 2-5 ATS, last 7 at home.
Well, this is kind of what the opponent that Buffalo has feasted on this year,
That's
losing
right.
teams.
Yep.
Exactly. Those type of football teams, they've beaten up on the records. The teams they've beaten are 13-47 for the year.
Yeah, I know, right?
My goodness. So
The,
they
the
kind
only
of
the
fit.
only team that's I think a 500 team is Tennessee, who they
There you
beat.
go. There you go. What you've got also in this football game is the fact that Denver's just 1-5 straight up end of the number against the AFC East, so they've really struggled against this particular division here. I really, in truth, don't like much of either side of this football game, but what I do like is the under total in the contest.
Okay.
You're matching up the league's number 3 defense in Buffalo and the league's number 4 defense in Denver. So you've got two stop units that are pretty good here defensively against two mediocre offenses. I think it equates more to an under than anything else handicapping this football game.
And keep in mind, Buffalo might be thinking ahead at Thanksgiving on a Thursday. Dallas on the road. That's going to be a big game for them. So they need to keep their minds on the Denver Broncos. And by the way, the Broncos are also 1-7 against the spread. Their last 8 away versus the AFC East. All right. Let's now talk about a game we both like. And this surprised me because you don't take the Patriots, or you haven't taken the Patriots a whole lot this season, but you're taking them in this spot. And lo and behold, maybe it shouldn't have surprised me because of who their opponent is. And it'll surprise me more the week we come on the air and you take the Dallas Cowboys. I think it's week 12? I think this is 12 for 12 against the Cowboys. I don't know. I might be wrong on that one. But Patriots are a 6.5-point favorite here. They get Isaiah Wynn back, which is a huge boost to the offensive line. The Cowboys are a dog for the first time this year, and they should be a dog. You just talked about the schedule for the Buffalo Bills. Well, we could take a look at the Cowboys' schedule, too, because all of their wins have been against the Giants, the Redskins, the Dolphins, the Lions, and the Eagles are the best team that they've beaten. But they've lost to the Vikings, the Packers, and teams like the Saints. And now they're stepping up and having to go to Foxborough to take out the Patriots. With that defense, yeah, I'm with you. I like the Patriots in this spot, knowing all I have to do is give up a touchdown.
And also knowing that Tom Brady detests the Dallas Cowboys. It's the one team he likes the least in the
Really?
league. Oh, yes.
Why
In
is
fact, he
that?
was, maybe as a kid growing up, he
Okay.
just didn't like the Cowboys. I don't know, but proof is in the pudding. You look at his record against the NFC in his career, taking on 600 or less NFC teams, of which, by the way, Dallas is only a 600 football team, a lot of name and reputation. But Brady against those kind of opponents is 39-4 straight up in his career and
Wow.
30-13 against the spread. So these are the kind of games that Brady gets up for. And when I know that Tom Brady's pumped up and wants to win a football game, I do not want any part of the opponent, and that would be the Dallas Cowboys here. I'm with you with New England in this football
All
game.
right, sounds good to me. Let's move on to the primetime game on Sunday, and that is Green Bay and San Francisco. And this is a game we're going to disagree on. I'm going to say the Packers learned their lesson from their last West Coast road trip because I think they really have to learn their lesson. This is a big game, measuring stick game for them. You want to know that your young team and your young head coach, after flopping the last time in this situation, has learned something from it. Now, the one thing that's different is they were a favorite in that spot. Here they're the underdog. We all know what the San Francisco 49ers schedule is over the next several weeks. It's a really monster schedule. They were lucky to beat Arizona last week, and we don't need to get into how they barely covered, depending on whether or not you actually had 9.5 or 10 or whatever it was. But this is a team that's been pretty shaky lately. They're 0-2-1 ATS in their last 3. Maybe they're lucky they don't come into this on a 2-game losing streak. Packers are 2-0 straight up ATS as a dog this year. I'm taking Green Bay. You're taking the Niners.
And I'm doing it for a couple of reasons here, Greg. And I'm relying more than anything on my math model or the statistics of each football team this year. The Green Bay Packers, with this good record, they've been out-yarded 7 times this football season here. That is not the sign of a good football team. It's a red flag to me. And you take a look at San Francisco, look at them from the second half of the football season. They've been outgaining opponents by 89 yards a game. In that same span, Green Bay is being outyarded 60 yards a game. That's a 149-yard difference favoring the San Francisco 49ers here. This number is what it is. It's low because it's the Green Bay Packers coming in as a dog with rest in this particular football contest here. I don't want to step in front of San Francisco in this powerful running game that they have. They own 131 yards the better defense in this football game as well. Give me the 49ers.
By the way, the other thing, this is, I think, San Francisco's third straight home game, I believe. I know Cleveland's on a third straight home game. And any time that, whether it's the NFL or college, anytime I see these teams on like a third or fourth straight home game, or they've been home for 5 weeks, I just tend to, if I'm thinking of going against them anyway, it's, to me, it's almost like it's like a cherry on top, because I get the feeling that when you're home for that long, the intensity of being home kind of wears out. That kind of home field edge maybe gets a little stale. Does that make sense?
Well, where it does get stale the most, Greg, is when you're off back-to-back home wins and you're in that third leg of that home stand,
Okay.
where it becomes a little bit commonplace. You know, you're looking yourself in the mirror for 2 weeks in a row. You're patting yourself in the back for job well done, and maybe expecting more like going through the motions than actually playing the game. So it does affect teams the most when they're off back-to-back home wins in that third straight home game.
All right. And then now here's one we agree on. As I was talking about the Jets before, because you had mentioned Lane Johnson and Carson Wentz. One of the reasons I like the Jets this week against Oakland is the fact that, as I've been saying on the Jet show recently, I wanted everybody, all the Jet fans, the crazed, they want to jump off the window fans this year, is take a look at what the Jets have done this year when Kelvin Beachum has started, and when Kelvin Beachum and Sam Darnold, of course. When you have Sam Darnold and Beachum starting in the same game, well, when that happens, the team has been a lot more successful. Matter of fact, you just take a look at it. Week 1, of course, they almost won. That was just a debacle with the injury to Mosley and so forth. But when Darnold came back, and just look at the last couple of weeks, Beachum comes back, and then they've won the last couple of games, and Darnold. Look, I'm not trying to sit here and say Beachum is Lane Johnson. That's not the point. The point is when you have a rookie at left tackle in Adoga, and you have to move in Shell to right tackle when he's a guy that should be on the bench, the rest of your line is just a disaster, and Darnold has no time to throw the football. So Beachum, what he does is he kind of gives the offensive line some normalcy, and they're at least an average, maybe at best, offensive line. And so Darnold is able to pick teams apart, especially teams that may not have great defenses. I don't think that changes this week, because the Raiders are a pretty good football team, but they're still defensively not all that great. And the secondary, you're talking about, you've got Abram, the rookie, out, Joyner's out, Joseph's out. So I expect the Jets to put up some points again this week. Raiders have got a match.
I can tell you're a New York Jets fan. You know how I can tell that, Greg?
How's that?
You know the name of every lineman on that football team. There are people that live in New York who are Jets fans that don't even know that.
Yeah, I guess that's
So
true.
that's off to you on that. But
Okay.
I do agree with you in this particular contest here. What you've got here in Oakland is, out of my database, an unrested road favorite that comes off 3 consecutive home wins in a row.
Ah,
That's when they're their flattest after
okay.
they've swept that 3 game homestand. No rest. They take to the road. They're just 6-16 against the point spread, and 3-13 if they're not an undefeated team. Now you got Oakland doing this west to east coast thing here again this particular week
That's right.
here. I think I think they're going to all this travel that they've done here that they caught up with at home. I think it's going to exasperate them in this football game in this contest here. I think the Jets come out pretty good in this game.
And also keep in mind, next week Oakland travels to Kansas City. So
Yes.
that's a potential look-ahead game there for the Raiders. And lastly, let's talk about a game we disagree on. That's going to be my upset of the week. I am taking the Giants to beat the Bears. Enough of Mitch Trubisky. Enough of this football team. Look, I thought maybe after the win going to L.A. it would give him one more shot, but it ain't working out. It's not that I believe in the kid. I never have, but it's just not working out. And they're probably going to play him again. I know that the offensive line is an issue for the Giants, and they've lost 6 straight. But I just don't think the Bears are a very good football team. And this is the type of team that I think the Giants can beat.
They're not a very good football team, and that's why this game is in the price range that it is. At the beginning of the football season here, the Chicago Bears, before they put lines out in Vegas before they played, was an 8-point favorite coming into this football game. I'm not a big Bear fan for sure. I'm not a big Mitch Trubisky fan, even though he's from my hometown in Cleveland. They are leaking oil. They've lost the stats their last three football games in a row, and usually I want to play against teams like that. But I'm not a big New York Giants fan by any way, shape, or form, especially on the road. The Chicago Bears, a couple of things that they've done well is when they've been at home and they've lost straight up into the spread their previous game and take on a rested opponent, they've won the money 7 of the last 8 times. The Bears are also 8-1 to the number at home between away games, off and away with an away game next. I don't think this is much of a. I'm not going to call this a bear trap, but the bottom line here to me, it's more anti-giant than anything here. Small lean to me to the Chicago Bears.
And the other thing I like about the Giants, bye versus the Sunday night game in Los Angeles for the Bears, and the Giants are 10-1 against the spread, including 1-0 this year in their last 11 as road dogs of 5 or more versus an opponent following a straight up loss. So I'll take the Giants. That's my top upset pick of the week. And do you have like a top dog of the week yourself? Anybody that you think could win outright?
Well, I would take a look at the Tampa Bay Bucks against Atlanta, and I talked about Atlanta and build them up a little bit because they were 1-7, and I look for them to get
Yeah.
back to the norm,
And
which
they
they did.
did, yeah.
Yes, 2 wins in a row, but now they're changing roles. Now they go from straight up underdog winners 2 games in a row to now home chalk. And this is a Tampa Bay football team that, yes, they've lost the money 6 straight games in a row, but they've won the yards in 4 of the last 5 football games. And this is the role where Bruce Arians is at his best. And that is as a division dog off a loss. That's the role that he's in here against Tampa or against Atlanta here. I think there's value to the Tampa Bay Bucks here. I like them in the upset.
Atlanta's got the game Thursday night, Thanksgiving against the Saints. So that'll be a good one, especially if Atlanta finds a way to beat Tampa Bay and go in with a 3-game winning streak. And you know what that tells us about the Bucks? That Bruce Arians is a very good football coach, which we already knew. And the fact that they've lost 5 out of 6 and dropped 6 straight covers during that stretch, it tells us Jameis Winston is not a very good quarterback. So we know there'll be a new quarterback for the Bucks next season.
Again, I'm going to go back to my roots, okay, being from Cleveland, Ohio here. I was really, really hoping and praying that when the Browns were made an offseason coaching change that they would have hired Bruce Arians.
Just imagine what he could
Yeah,
have done with Baker Mayfield.
oh my goodness, he wanted the job. He was campaigning for the job. And we wouldn't have seen this mess that we're seeing with Cleveland right now. I'm not saying they'd be a better football team, but they certainly wouldn't be any worse than they are right now. And my chances are, I would bet, yes, they would be a better team.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yes.
they would be. And then, of course, what is the Egg Bowl's on Thanksgiving, right? That's the only college game of the week, I think, on
The
Thanksgiving.
Mississippi game, yeah,
Yeah, Mississippi
believe,
State.
I believe it is, yes, and that'll be an interesting game here between two disappointing football teams, but you never know what you're going to get in that. I almost always look
Yeah.
at the point to take the dog in those Egg Bowls.
Yeah, I like Mississippi. I don't know what the spread's going to be. I don't even know where the game is just yet. But I think Mississippi is a better team than them this year, than the Bulldogs.
I think they are this year as well. I would agree.
All right. Appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you, Mark, on Friday we'll keep our normal schedule. So have a great Thanksgiving. I know it's kind of hard to get into the festivities in Florida, but you're used to it. So I'm sure when you go outside and it's 70 degrees, you could probably laugh at the rest of the country if you like.
I'll do it inwardly. I won't do it outwardly, okay?
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Hey, enjoy Thanksgiving, Greg. I'll catch you
You
next
too.
week. Take care.